welcome to AD and RD on DC.
How you doing, Al?
How you doing, Roberto?
I'm doing great.
Sweet. Okay, so this is one of our episodes that will talk about a specific superhero. We already had our intro episode. I hope you all heard that one first before you jumped into this one. We have already described everything that we're going to go through. So, for the next few episodes, just as a recap for those of you who have been listening, we're going to go through specific superheroes. Today will be my favorite, Batman.
The Dark Knight.
The Caped Crusader. And then next week we're going to go through and get to Superman, which is Roberto's favorite.
Oh yeah, the last son of Krypton, baby.
The Man of Steel himself. That's right.
Man of Tomorrow.
And after that, then we'll start jumping into other superheroes from the DC universe, particularly the Justice League. Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, all of them. But for right now, we're going to jump into a little bit of current DC news. Just to reiterate our love of comics. So we're actually going to have Roberto talk about a couple things, and then I'll talk about a couple things, and then we'll jump right into our Batman discussion. So, Roberto, take it away.
Yeah, man. Just wanted to share some interesting news I found today. And at first, when I saw it, because I mean, like we've said before, I am a super huge Superman nut, and so I'm religiously checking Google News every day for Man of Steel news. And like I told Al on the last podcast, I'm purposely not reading spoilers, okay? Because there are some that have popped up, but this one I couldn't help but see because it said it in the stupid headline of the article, but it still has a question mark. So this might not be true, but apparently, and I will say spoiler alert in case you don't want to know anything. You might want to fast forward this part.
Close your ears.
Yeah. Plug your ears or go to the bathroom or something, or chew really loud if you're eating something. Apparently, there's an article here, and it says, Man of Steel, surprise villain. And at first, the first one I saw, it said, new Man of Steel, surprise villain revealed by new Lego toy, ? So I was like, what the heck? By Legos, huh? So I guess they're already starting to come out with some toys for it, I guess. And so, but anyways, so I stayed away from it because I was like, I don't want to know who it is. So the next day I checked the Man of Steel news again, hoping there'd be something else, maybe an interview with one of the actors or something, or the director or Christopher Nolan. I'm dying to hear him talk more about it. Or Hans Zimmer. The next time I looked it up, this is what I read. It says, Man of Steel surprise villain, Black Zero set to make an appearance, ? And at first I was like, Black Zero? I don't, like that, that's not one that I'm necessarily super familiar with. I'm like, who the heck is Black Zero? Sounds really cool. But then I remember, and I believe it was you I was talking to about it, or somebody, that Nolan, since he helped write this movie, as you can see with his movies, and we'll get into that later. But, he likes to there's never just one villain. There's always like another side villain or another villain that's in there that you might not know about till the middle of the movie or whatever. So apparently that's something that should be on all our minds, that since he helped write the script, helped write the story, that's a possibility in this movie, that it's not just going to be Zod and Faora, but I mean, those are already two villains, but apparently there's going to be another one. And so I didn't read I didn't get into this article because I like many of you, I don't want to be spoiled by the plot or have any plot points told to me, because I love to just go there and be surprised when I watch a movie. It doesn't just have to be a superhero movie, any movie. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, that that Black Zero might be the new, or one of the extra villains in the movie. Now, really quickly, because I know we need to move on, but so I kind of looked up who the heck Black Zero was, and because I wasn't really too familiar with it. Have you heard of him, Al?
Nope, have not.
Now, when I looked it up, it says that apparently there's 3 different incarnations of this character. I guess one is he's almost kind of like almost like another Superman type of guy, like another superhero type person with similar powers, but is obviously evil. Another incarnation of him is like almost like a Brainiac type of character, like a computer virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what the third one is, but we'll get more into that character, because I definitely want to look. I'm gonna do my research and look way more into when we do the Superman episode. I just want to throw that out there. People can start looking it up if they want, but I just wanted to tickle their interest a little bit with that, and that's pretty big news. That's been released about Man of Steel. Also, we talked about in the last episode about Amazon, the new show that possibly CW is going to be doing. Just in case you guys haven't heard about that, that's supposed to be like an origin story of Wonder Woman, and the Arrow's coming out. But that's pretty much the only big news I have for DC right now. But I had to share that. So there you go. There's your little tease for the day, for the week.
All right, I have one more thing. DC Comics has released info that they've just released the Batman: The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 on DVD and Blu-ray.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's an animated version of the Dark Knight Returns comic, the graphic novel. They've decided to split that up into 2 movies, so they've already animated the first part, and they've released that onto Blu-ray and DVD. I don't know when they're coming up with the next part. Probably it's going to be sometime either by Christmas or next year. But if you liked Under the Red Hood and Batman Year One, this is definitely the next step on the new animated features that they've been doing. Bruce Timm and all them, they're really good at coming up with stories for our Caped Crusader, and we really gotta support them. We want more of this stuff coming out. So
yes, more quality work for sure.
That's right. Okay, so that was that. Now I think it's a good time for us to start talking about Batman.
Oh yeah. And Al, since this is your favorite guy, your favorite hero in the whole comic book universe, but also especially DC, what Batman incarnation are we gonna talk about first?
Okay, the very first Batman that we're going to talk about today, it's going to be the Chris Nolan movie Batman. Now that Batman is the one that most of you should know. It's been out in the theaters recently. It's the 3rd movie, Dark Knight Rises. But his trio of films has sparked a new admiration for the character, at least among non-comic book fans. Because before, comic book movies were all about the fans of comic books, people who loved the character and they wanted to go see the movie. But this is the first time that a superhero movie was made that everybody wanted to go see because it was just a good movie. They were just good movies to watch. So we should touch a little bit on this. Roberto, what are your opinions on these movies? Let's start with Batman Begins.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, yeah, the cool thing about Batman Begins is I remember when that movie first came out, and this was I remember hearing about a new Batman, that they were rebooting it, they were going to do this new Batman, and I remember that was before, I don't know if IMDb existed at that point, in 2004. Is when they started. 2005 is when it came out, but 2004 was probably when they filmed it, when they started like releasing things and information. Mm-hmm. But I remember somehow reading. I remember reading about that the Scarecrow was going to be in it, and that Ra's al Ghul was going to be in it, and I was like, what? Like I couldn't even picture those two characters in a movie because nobody had done it before. I was like, this is really cool. This is really interesting. So I remember that was the first thing that kind of interested me. The second thing was when I saw the first picture of the Tumblr, and I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? That's the Batmobile!" Like I was like, "This is awesome. This is just crazy," you know. And this is before I seen any kind of trailer, teaser, anything. It was just that information. And then I saw that they had hired. Christian Bale. I remember seeing him on the cover of Entertainment Magazine. That this is the new Batman. And I knew him from American Psycho, and I thought, okay, that's a pretty interesting way to go because this guy's been in a crazy movie before. And then when I saw that they hired Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine, and at that point I wasn't super familiar with Liam Neeson yet. I mean, I think I had recognized him, but I think at that point, yeah, because I knew him from Star Wars.
Yeah, definitely.
That's I think where I really got to know him well. And then he was in Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom, pretty close to that time period. Around that, I think those movies came out within years of each other, just back-to-back years of each other. And I just remember thinking after I saw Batman Begins, wow, this is like Liam Neeson. That he played 3 movies in a row where he's like the mentor guy. He's like the guy that trains them, because like in Star Wars he was training Obi-Wan and then Anakin for a little bit as a kid. And then in Kingdom of Heaven, he was Orlando Bloom's dad that kind of like taught him how to be a knight and stuff like that. And then Batman, he got to train Batman. I mean, that's so cool. So anyways, what I wanted to say was that I remember Batman Begins. I mean, it was like exciting, and this movie was coming out, but there wasn't like a crazy anticipation like there was for The Dark Knight, obviously. But it's because of Batman Begins that Dark Knight also had such a hype to it. But I remember like going to see it, and I remember I went to go watch it with who's now my wife, Kiri, but at that time we were still just boyfriend girlfriend, and we had been dating for about a year, and we went to go see it with her brother Tyler, and his wife. Well, now she's his wife, but back then I think she was just his girlfriend.
A lot of people got married just after that movie. They were brought together by the Batman.
And then it was also Kiri's sister as well, and then maybe like 2 other people. But the point is, I went to going in the movie. I knew I remember the first trailer, teaser was I watched it again the other day after the Man of Steel teaser came out to compare notes, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. First teaser, because it's just Bruce Wayne talking, and he's talking about this almost like he's describing like a monster that's could be let loose kind of thing, and then at the end he's like, it's me. There's something that is trying to come out or whatever, and it can't be stopped, and it's and basically talking about this thing that's coming out that's dangerous and powerful, and then he's like, me. and for 90 seconds of that teaser, you have no idea it's even a Batman movie. You think it's gonna because they show he's I've been all over the world, and they show him in Iceland walking on those mountains, and then they show this and that, and then as soon as he says me, they just show the bat symbol of the shirt you're wearing, just that, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's Batman. So amazing. And so, But, going into the movie, I didn't have too high expectations. I was just like, oh, this looks fun. This looks like a movie. And then as soon as they talk, that scene where Gordon's like, yeah, there's this Joker character. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, you haven't seen it yet, but there's no way you're listening to this and haven't seen it. And he's like, take this new guy that's leaving his calling card, Joker, and he's just like, I'll look into it. And then he's like, Gordon or something, I want to say thanks or something. He's like, I never said thank you. And he's like, then you never will. And then he just jumps off, and then you just see him fly towards the camera, and it's just like, boom, Batman Begins. And I remember everybody in the theater clapped. It was an awesome movie, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is how you do a superhero movie. This is how you do it. The last time I felt like that was Superman, the Richard Donner movie. I mean, I liked the Michael Keaton movies for sure, but after that, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. And then, of course, my wife's brother is like, that's why Batman's my favorite. I'm like, oh, whatever. I never heard you ever talk about Batman until now, Because at that point, he knew about Smallville. We had been watching Smallville, and he knew that my favorite hero was Superman and blah, blah, blah. He never mentioned anything about Batman, really. And after that movie, he's like, see, that's why Batman's my favorite. I'm like, whatever. But yeah, it was a good movie. And that movie just, because, and that's the thing, it's still kind of like, I feel like it's still kind of underrated a little bit compared to the last two. Because, obviously it was the first one and all that. But if it wasn't for how good that one was, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight already had ridiculous hype. And then obviously when Heath Ledger died, then that blew it up even more. Because we got to see his last performance kind of thing and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so that's my spiel on it. And it's just, to me, that was like, boom, okay. This is the new standard of superhero movies.
And I'm glad they did make this new standard because up until that point, we had a couple of Marvel movies like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, and that was all that we had in comparison. That like them and the X-Men. All we had was Marvel.
I know.
And not that I'm complaining, they did okay with their movies, but for us, for DC fans, we really wanted to have other DC characters come out and give us something to compete with Marvel. And
yeah, because at that point, all it was Smallville was the only thing really out, live action wise. I guess. That took it kind of seriously. But I think the other movie compared at that time, that superhero that was the closest to a seriousness as Batman Begins was the first X-Men. I think the first X-Men I thought was pretty good. I thought it was really, really well done and really serious. And it was kind of like just that opening scene with with Magneto being in the Holocaust, the child of the Holocaust, was like, whoa, holy crap! They're gonna put the Holocaust in here somehow. That's pretty bold.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're saying, it was about time that freaking DC stepped it up.
Yeah, and then okay, so moving on to The Dark Knight. Now that one, again, like Roberto just said, it was ridiculously hyped up, and then after Heath Ledger's death, it was just pumped up even more. To the point that comedians were even making jokes about how, okay, so now for every movie, if you want it to be super hyped up, you gotta kill one of the actors in order to get this movie seen. But then it came out and it broke so many records, and on top of that, it was a fantastic movie. It took the baseline of Batman Begins and it just created a whole other level of superhero movie. You had the Joker and Two-Face both in there. And just the way that the story was told, the twists and the turns that he pulled you through, it really got you deep into the movie, and you didn't care that it was almost 3 hours long. You sat through the whole thing and you were just like, wait a minute, that's it? I want more Batman.
Yes, yeah. If anything, it could have been 4 hours, and I still would have been sitting there with a smile on my face. But yeah, like you said, like there was so much. I mean, that was when me and Al lived together in Orlando, and I remember just like, I mean, I'm an education man. I don't think I went, talked about that in the last podcast. I'm not sure, but I'm an education major. I'm an elementary teacher, and so I was at the University of Central Florida in the education program. So I'm mostly in classes with girls. Okay, let's just be honest. It's a profession led by women, and so most of my classmates were girls, and even they were talking about The Dark Knight coming out. You know, I mean, this is how much hype this has because that was the thing. It was, and I don't know if Christopher Nolan actually thought about it this way, but the fact that he cast Heath Ledger. I mean, when I first heard that he was going to be the Joker, I was actually angry. I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me, Heath Ledger?" Because the only thing I really knew that he did was like romantic comedy type movies. Like I think he did that movie 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, and the Knight's Tale.
Yeah, and then Knight's Tale, and all these kind of like goofy movies. And I was like, really, this is the guy that's gonna play Joker? Come on now. I was like, God, because it was so good, and now they just dropped the ball. You know, I was just totally against it. And then there was so much hype, but the reason why there was also hype was because people that actually had seen him work said that his performance was unbelievable. So then that also, you know, and then the hype, and that also helped the hype because it's not just that he died, but that his performance was really, really, really good. And then just for it to live up to that expectation and even more, I mean, it was just unbelievable. I remember the first time I went to go see it was with you, our friend, and he was, because Al was in my wedding. Al was my cousin, obviously. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. One of my other groomsmen, and also one of my best men, my friend Travis. He went. Me and you. I believe his brother Jesse also came, and then the guy that was living with my friend Travis and his brother Jesse, Taylor, and his girlfriend. It was them two, the two brothers, me and Al, and maybe like a couple other people. I think maybe some of Taylor's might have came. And we went to go see it in IMAX. I'm sorry, I just lied. That wasn't my first time. First time I saw it with my wife in Gainesville. We went to go see it in a regular theater, and I only did that because I was telling myself I'm not watching this until I see it in IMAX because I knew that Christopher Nolan had filmed some of it on IMAX, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this man. Because I had always been going to IMAX movies with my dad since I was young, when it was just like documentaries that they showed on it. And for them and they had been showing movies in IMAX theaters, but they were never actually shot with IMAX cameras. They just put them in the IMAX theater for like mostly for the sound, I guess. Mm. But for it to actually be shot with IMAX camera, I was stoked. But I wanted to see this movie so bad, I couldn't wait. So we went to the regular theater. And I remember that when when it first starts and you see the Warner Brothers symbol, it's like, doom, 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 doom. I was like, oh my gosh! And then they show the bat symbol and it's just fire. Uh-huh. But there's sound. And I remember I was sitting there with my wife and I'm like, did the sound just cut out? Because there was no sound. It was weird. I was expecting to hear like an explosion when they show that fire. And I was actually getting mad. I was like, is somebody going to like tell the projectionist that there's no sound coming out of this thing? And then suddenly boom, they show like a building where Joker like is about to rob. And then you hear like the grappling cable or whatever go through the window. And then I'm like, okay, they did that on purpose. Okay. I was like, did somebody cut the sound out? I want to watch Batman.
Yeah, I remember that's exactly what I thought the first time I went. I went with a buddy of mine from school on opening night. All right, I went to the very first showing at the IMAX theater. I was like, if I'm gonna watch this movie, I gotta be one of the first ones to see it. So I left class. I got there like I don't remember, like 4 hours early or something, so I could wait in line for this movie. And I was still like the 12th person in line. It was ridiculous.
That's insane. Yeah, it's
insane. So we got there super early. We got the best seats in the house to watch like an IMAX movie, which in my opinion is like second row from the top. in the very middle.
Yes. Anything lower than maybe you could get away with the third, but yeah, I always try to shoot for the top or the second to the top.
Yeah. So we saw the movie. I had the same thought Roberto did. Like, did they screw up the sound? Really? Look, this is IMAX. They're supposed to have better systems than this.
Yeah. So that means So then when we went to go see it together, that was both of our second time watching it. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were already comparing notes and stuff on it, and we went to go see it and seeing it in IMAX. And you were making it worse because you had already seen it in IMAX. And you were like, you got to see it in IMAX. You got to see it in IMAX. I'm like, I want to see it in IMAX. So like we went to go see it, and it was like I hadn't seen it yet. I was just like, this is unbelievable. I was like, I can never watch another movie again unless it's in IMAX. It just freaking ruined my movie going experience anywhere else. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is, and like those scenes where it actually takes up the entire screen. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Which is ridiculous.
And then that was the second time, and then I remember my parents came to visit us, and we took them to go see it, and that was my third time seeing it in the theaters, and I was just like, I just enjoyed it all over again.
And I loved that part too, and I actually got to see it a fourth time in the IMAX, which was ridiculous. I got to see it 4 times in the IMAX. The first 3 times I had to pay for the ticket, but the last time I got a free ticket because another friend of mine hadn't seen it. He was going to go with another friend. They bailed out, so they're like, hey, do you want to watch this movie? And I'm like, yes, I do. I really do. I do not care. I've seen the movie 3 times. I will watch it again. Like, just to add more ticket money to The Dark Knight for those weekends. I just wanted to pump that movie up so much. So that was probably my favorite, like, Batman experience of my adult life. Because, you know, when you're a kid, you have the kid memories. And those always supersede everything else. Because you think that's the greatest thing ever, every single time.
All right. So Al, I had a question for you. With the Dark Knight, well, I guess it could be about both. Dark Knight and Batman Begins. What, when you were watching The Dark Knight, what just set it off for you? What point were you like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the movie this is the Batman I've been waiting for. Because, I mean, Batman Begins was an awesome origin story, and now once we get in The Dark Knight, he's already Batman. It's like, all right. But so, like, what to you, like, just made it so much better than the first one?
Well, first of all, the story was way more intense. Like, the first one, it was all about how he was fighting off his own fear from the Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. And so in the second one, he was, like, dealing with this crazy kid that was just screwing up every plan he had, and I just felt like I felt bad for the guy in a way, because it was like, okay, why does this all have to happen to Batman?
Yeah, and see, that's something too. Like, Batman Begins, it was dark. It's definitely the most dark, serious take on Batman, I think, up until that point. Mm-hmm. But there was still a little bit of lightness to it, a little bit. But Dark Knight, I mean, there's like maybe 2 seconds of lightness. You know, maybe a couple scenes where it's like a little lighthearted, but that's it. I mean, there's a couple. You know, Alfred always says something kind of funny, and then that's it. But I remember when I first saw it, the first thing I thought was like, oh my gosh, like, Batman's not going to win. Like, how is he going to win? Because every time you think he's got Joker does something else, and then does something else, and then does something else. Like, he just keeps on doing these horrible things. And, you know, I heard in an interview with Christopher Nolan that the first movie was about fear. You know, mostly that was the theme, fear. And then the second one was just chaos. The theme is chaos with the Joker. And just, And I think, to me, there's just so many things about the second one that just... And even when the second one came out, I remember thinking, well, I still like both of them the same. I don't think I could just own one of them. Like, I like Batman Begins so much, and then I like Dark Knight so much. But I think what Dark Knight did was just the fact that Heath Ledger was so amazing and so original on his take as Joker. I mean, he was really a psychotic. I mean, he freaked me out in that movie. Like, a legitimate villain that he's so unpredictable. He could be laughing 1 minute, and the next second he's slitting your throat. You know, it's just, you don't know what he's going to do. Whereas, like, you know, with Scarecrow, it's like you knew what his plan was. You know, he was trying to scare you. He was working for Ra's al Ghul, and, you know, you knew what Ra's al Ghul's mission was. But, like, with Joker, he has no mission. He's just, let me just disrupt everything. And I'm going to laugh about it, too. and to me, I just think, I mean, they stepped it up at every level. They stepped it up on his gadgets. They stepped it up on I mean, when he did that mission where he went and got, what was the Chinese guy's name?
I don't remember, but the guy that was in China, he was the one that had all the money from the mob bosses. And
I went to go get him, and he did that mission where he kidnapped him, and the plane came and grabbed him. I mean, I remember when that happened in the theater, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, Batman is the man. You know, like, that's just crazy. But yeah, I just thought. And I thought the way they did Two-Face was pretty cool, too. I mean, I've heard some people say, well, I wish he would have got his own movie, or he deserves to have a longer screen time. But I think they did it right, because to me, Joker is a bigger character than Two-Face to me. I mean, that's just my opinion. And I think the way they did it, having them both in, and the fact that because of Joker, Two-Face came to be. I thought that was a really interesting twist.
Right. I would have liked it if they didn't kill Two-Face at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that
would have been my thing. Like, if they would have been able to bring him back for a second one, or at least give the opportunity for him to come back. Like, they did that with Scarecrow. They had him come in every movie.
Yeah. For
no reason for the second one, really. He just, like, kind of popped up at the very beginning and then was locked up again.
Well, yeah. Well, I think the reason why they did that was, one, to show continuation from the first one. But second, because in the first one, remember, they released all the prisoners from Arkham or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was one of them. He was the one on the horse, you know, going. And I guess they're trying to say that, oh, yeah, he never got caught. So I guess, and really quickly in the second one, it was like Batman catching him and putting him back. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, it's funny because they killed off Two-Face, but yet they probably, I mean, I know they couldn't really kill the Joker, but because of what happened to Heath Ledger, it made more sense for them to kill the Joker, because obviously there's no way he's coming back in the third one. But Harvey Dent, but I guess the fact that Harvey Dent died, you know, I guess we'll get into Dark Knight Rises now, but that kind of led. The whole fact that Harvey Dent went bad and died completely set up the whole plot for the third one.
Yeah, and I think they planned it that way. David Goyer and Chris Nolan probably were like, okay, so if we have him die, then we can do something in the second one. We can do something in the third one that we can, like, have it be. We have the death, like, stop all crime, because everybody's all like, oh yeah, he was the White Knight, he was our savior, and then Batman killed him.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Also, always, I mean, these are little stupid things from that we're picking apart here, but the movie was unbelievable. It probably will stand alone right now as probably the best superhero movie ever, until something comes and beats it. But I thought it would, like, because DC characters especially, that's what differentiates them from Marvel, is that they don't kill, right? Like Superman, Batman, Flash, Wonder, they won't kill. That's like the DC's rule. Cannot kill.
For whatever reason, they all have their own specific reasons, but they all like, swore that they would not kill anyone.
Yeah, and I guess that doesn't count for, like, accident. I guess they can kill people by accident, maybe, because pretty much Batman killed Two-Face. I mean, he dove to get the kid, but in turn ended up killing Two-Face. So that was one part that I kind of had a little issue with, because I'm like, Batman pretty much killed him. Because if he didn't jump on him like that, he wouldn't have died. He wouldn't have fallen to his death. So I'm like, that was kind of part of it that kind of bothered me a little bit. I was just like, well...
Well, if you think about it, he also technically killed Ra's al Ghul in the first one.
Yeah, but that was at least... But that was at least... Remember he said, well, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. But Ra's al Ghul put himself in that situation, though. He was on that train. That's where you can kind of get out of that one. Mm-hmm. It's like, maybe in the comics or the cartoon, he might try to save him anyways. But I think that really made more sense. Like, I'm just gonna get out of here, and you have to get yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like him physically causing him to die. Whereas with Two-Face, he literally like tackled him off the side and is the physical reason for him dying. But I don't know. I mean, I know that's splitting hairs and whatever, but that was just something I thought of when I first saw it. I was like, wait a minute. Batman can't, not supposed to kill anybody. But I guess it was on accident. And ever since then, since I've been watching the Smallvilles, that's something I really keen in on now. Like, there's a couple characters that, like, he kills, but, like, it's not like he killed them with his hand. It's like because he fought with them or something, they end up dying.
Mm-hmm.
There's always, like, some kind of a twist or some kind of a way to an excuse that he didn't actually kill him.
Yeah. And actually, coming to this point, to the deaths and everything, this is a good transition to lead us into The Dark Knight Rises. Because it's because of Rachel Dawes' death that Batman kind of retires for 8 years.
Yeah.
And they touched upon this on Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman.
Yeah.
That
Garment. They totally just ripped Dark Knight Rises apart.
Yeah. But it is something that I did notice. Like, if it really was Batman, he would not have taken 8 years because of a single girlfriend's death. In the comics, he's had so many girlfriends die on him, and he just keeps going. Because that's not the reason for his fighting. Like, he fights because he has this overwhelming sense of justice due to his parents' death from when he was a kid.
Yeah, he basically wants to basically to me, Batman's mission always was, I went through this horrible, horrible ordeal experience in my life with my parents dying, watching them die right in front of me. I want to make sure as much as I can to prevent that from happening to anybody else. So, like, just because it happens to him again, I mean, yeah, maybe, I mean, as soon as I heard that it was going to be 8 years later, I was like, whoa, that's a long time. I'm like, 8 years? I mean, he's going to be, like, almost 40 years old, to be almost a 40-year-old Batman. And not that that's crazy old, but it's not crazy young either. And so it's like, I mean, I guess in The Dark Knight Rises, I guess that was essentially the reason why he stopped. But they try to say that wasn't the only reason why, that it was because he also stopped because all the organized crime was gone, and he had to, and because he let them blame him, or he convinced Commissioner Jim Gordon to blame him for Harvey's death. It's like, well, I'm just going to I'll take a break because, A, I lost my girlfriend. B, there's no organized crime, no real horrible threats to Gotham as a city. But yeah, what they touched on that podcast was true, is that if you think about it, like, okay, but Batman's mission isn't always to, he's trying to save Gotham, but he doesn't just try to stop those huge...
The huge criminals. He wants to stop the small ones, too. Like,
yeah, also tries to stop the everyday mugger too, and he patrols the night. He doesn't just, he's like a cop pretty much, and he's going around looking to make sure things are in order, not just, well, let me wait until some crazy big plotted villain comes in and wants to do something to Gotham. And I mean, that was one issue that they said they had on that show, whatever. And the thing is I guess Christopher Nolan could always say, well, we were trying to go so real world with it that if you really were Batman, there's no way you could go night after night after night after night after night fighting people.
Which is true.
But they don't do what Batman does. They're not taking on people. He takes on people that these won't, you know? So they could always argue that. But if you're a hardcore Batman fan, I could see where that would disappoint you. But given that, like, were you as hyped about Dark Knight Rises as you were about Dark Knight?
For some reason, I was not as hyped up about the Rises as I was Dark Knight. I mean, I was still really excited. I wanted to see the next Batman movie. I did end up going to see it opening weekend in IMAX with my sister. But I was not as excited as I was for Dark Knight because, you know, I did like that Bane was going to be in the movie, but he didn't touch upon what other villains were going to be in there. Were going to be in the movie. So I was like, okay, so there's Bane, and there's probably going to be somebody else because he's been doing that a lot. But I don't know who it is. And what happened was that I wanted to watch it, but less than I was less crazy about it than I was for Dark Knight.
Yeah. Well, see, I remember last year around this time, well, a little bit earlier, like August. Late July is when me and Kiri, my wife, went to England. That's where she's originally from, and we went to her best friend's wedding. And I've become really good friends with her best friend's husband. And he's really into movies. He actually works for a company that does that supplies fake snow for movies, films, commercials, TV shows. So he's really into movies too. So we were like looking up everything we could about Dark Knight Rises. You know, like on the computer, we were trying to find a teaser, trying to find a picture, anything. So I mean, I was really excited. I feel like I was just as excited. But you know. And then I remember when they first put up the website for the Dark Knight Rises official website, all it was a black screen. So you went to darkknightrises.com and literally it's just a black screen and it was a looped track of the chant, of the Bane chant. Mm-hmm. Just people chanting. I'm like, what the heck is this? It sounds like a tribe, like in Africa or somewhere like around a fire chanting. I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, that's just perfect. To me, I just thought that was perfect promotion or advertising for the movie because it doesn't show you anything and you just get a little taste of the chant. And I'm like, is this going to be in the movie? Because it needs to be. And I remember hearing that Bane was going to be the bad guy, and I immediately looked up who the guy was, Tom Hardy, and I knew that he was in Inception, and Inception was just an unbelievable movie. I mean, that was such an awesome movie. I mean, that was something that Christopher Nolan came off the heels of Dark Knight, so you know it had to be pretty good. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And at that point, when that movie came out, they kept asking him, are you going to do another Batman? Are you going to do another Batman? And he was saying, I don't know. Like, he was still saying, I'm not, maybe not. And he's like, well, what he would say was, if we can come up with a good story, a good conclusion, then yes, we'll do one. But right now, we're still, focusing on this film and blah, blah, blah. So, like, I just remember watching that movie and being like, this guy is just so good at making movies. He has to do another Batman. But I think the fear, and I remember reading that his fear was, and as well as everybody else's was, Dark Knight was so good so good that, I mean, somebody could argue that they should just stop at that because it's just so good. But but story wise, it didn't conclude anything. So it's kind of like we want closure, to this story. So I mean, I feel like Nolan and Bale and the whole crew that made these movies, they were in a catch-22 situation. If don't, then people are going to complain and say, "Well, you didn't give us a trilogy. You didn't give us a conclusion to this Bruce Wayne." Blah, blah, blah. But then, if they do make one and it doesn't, and it's not as good as the other one, then people are going to bitch about it or like bash you about it. So then when I heard he was coming out with a new one, I was like, oh gosh, what are they going to do next? Like, seriously, how are you going to top the Dark? Because they're going to want to try to top it. And if anything, at least match it, But the problem is with Heath Ledger giving such an amazing performance, it's like, how is Tom Hardy with Bane going to be able to do that, especially with a mask over his face? It's just hard. And then when they said Catwoman, when they said Catwoman was going to be in the movie, and we're going to touch on villains later, but when I heard her name, Anne Hathaway, it was the same thing I thought when I heard Heath Ledger. I was like, Anne Hathaway? As Catwoman? She was in Devil Wears Prada. Like, are you kidding me, Nolan? What is wrong with you? I'm like,
Princess Diaries. I mean, what is this girl that you're trying to push on us as Catwoman? Exactly.
And the thing is like, I was thinking, well, all I know her from are these, like, romantic comedies, Bride Wars and Devil Wears Prada and all these other movies. But then I had to smack myself in the face and go back and wait a minute. I said the same thing about Heath Ledger, and look how amazing that turned out. So I'm like, okay, well, I trust Nolan. If he picked her, it's because he sees something in her. He's obviously let her read the script and try, an audition or whatever, and she does it well. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And I honestly I was going to ask you, because I don't think I've even really talked to you about her portrayal as Catwoman, but I think she was awesome. I think not just her, but the writing of her was really cool. I think it fit it, because at first that was another thing I thought of too, was how are they going to fit Catwoman in the Nolan world? Because, it's so serious and so real world, and Catwoman can be campy, and it can be a little silly, because I'm just thinking of, and even though Michelle Pfeiffer's version that one just went ultra sexy. Let's just make her sexy in the whole movie. Let's just try to make her try and seduce Batman almost the whole time and then kick him in the back, And so this one, I was just like, how are they going to do it, And I think they did it really well. Obviously, nothing touches Heath Ledger. Bane, I thought Bane was awesome. Just heartless, Not easy like Joker, but just heartless, like a machine almost. Like, nothing could beat him. And I thought the choice of doing the voice the way he did was pretty interesting. It's like this big brooding guy and then this little kind of like British kind of voice. It's like, what the? It's like the Mike Tyson thing. You see Mike Tyson and you're like, oh my gosh. And then when he talks, it's like, really?
But of course, you wouldn't say it to his face.
So, but what did you think of her doing Catwoman?
I thought Anne Hathaway did a really good job. She portrayed the character well. I like the direction that they went with it. I'm still not sure why Batman would have trusted her after stabbing him in the back. But I did like how they made her kind of like an anti-hero. They made her very... She was doing bad things, but for good reasons.
Yeah. And they even referenced, like, Robin did, I think, in it. Didn't they?
A little bit. I think they did, yeah.
Somebody said something about that.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we are running dangerously high on time here. We've already gone, I think, over an hour.
Okay.
So we're going to start jumping into the rest of the topics we wanted to jump into for this podcast. So, Roberto, I know that you kept a list. What is it that we were going to talk about again? We wanted to talk about all the other Batman stuff, right?
Yeah, well, we plan to talk about the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we want to try to touch on some of the villains, but I feel like in other Batman incarnations. But I think if we talk about, I think we should talk about the animated series because that is something that's been close to both our hearts. We both that show really that really helped our love for DC and for Batman for comics. Mm-hmm. And I think we could still touch on the villains because we were talking about villains, Batman's villains. So we thought we were going to talk about Joker, Two-Face, Penguin, Ra's al Ghul, Talia.
All of them, yeah.
So wherever you want to start, buddy.
All right, so let's go with the animated series. The animated series, it came out in 1992. It was produced by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, and they wrote most of the episodes. They wrote pretty much all of the episodes. Batman was voiced by the incredible Kevin Conroy, who just had the.
Yeah, which yesterday I looked up on YouTube real quick. I got to look up footage of him and Mark Hamill both in the studio, like doing the voiceovers. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, and so we've got Kevin Conroy doing that. Mark Hamill, of course, was the Joker. He only was in a couple episodes though. So the main guy was Kevin Conroy doing his Batman thing, and that show was played so close to reality that it was unlike any other cartoon pretty much since then and before then. It was all of the cartoons were kind of, alright, so this is a cartoon, we're going to do stuff that we can't do in real life because it's a cartoon. So there was a lot of campiness, there was a lot of very Looney Tunes-esque stuff going on. And up until then, a lot at that point in the 80s, cartoons were kind of blocky. Like you think of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, you think of Scooby-Doo and Flintstones and all those, and it's a whole bunch of people just standing there talking, and then they move, and then they just stand there talking again.
Uh-huh.
And that's the kind of cartoons that there were in the 80s. And then Steven Spielberg started coming in with his other cartoons at Warner Brothers, like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. And around that time, Bruce Timm, who also was the producer for Tiny Toons, came out and he did the Batman series. And they wanted the Batman series to reflect the Tim Burton Batman movies, because the Batman Returns had just come out, and everybody was all hyped for that movie. They wanted a cartoon based on that, so they said, okay, do it as dark as possible. We want it to be just like the movie. So they
it came off the heels, definitely, of the Batman Returns.
Exactly. And it even had, almost the same score. They used the Danny Elfman score for the theme song, and then.
So wait, I have a question about that. So because the theme song for the animated series, is it the exact same? It's not the exact same as the movie, right? It's a little different.
It's slightly different. It's almost the same. Like they based the theme on the movie. But the actual theme was written by Shirley Walker, who wrote the score for the show, for all the episodes, and it's pretty crazy. Like, she even has. If any of you have this, you're very lucky. It's a very rare find. The score for the Batman animated series. It had a special track on there that was her describing how she came up with the music for the series, and it's very interesting. I got the whole thing, and I love listening to the series because I love listening to the score because it makes me always think back to the episodes and how many times you just heard that theme running through the whole thing. So even using the score and having the Batman character be as awesome as he was, but then we got to see a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't get to see in those movies previous and anything else. We got to jump into episodes that were like the comics, almost.
Yeah, it's like we got to see comics coming to life, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that show, man. I remember when it came out. I mean, I raced home. Well, my mom drove me, but you know, I was like, I couldn't wait to get home because I knew that that Batman animated series was coming on. And every time that intro, I mean, I've been watching it these last few days, going back to watching it. In case, and I want to tell our listeners, if you want to watch them, and you don't have the money to buy them or whatever, you can watch a lot of the first season on, and I don't know about the other seasons, I haven't tried that yet, but if you go to WB.com, or even if you just type in Batman the Animated Series on Google, and it's like the fourth link from the top, and it says Batman Animated Series full episodes, and it takes you to WB.com, and that's where I've been watching them. I watched the first 3 the other day. I watched the first Joker episode, Joker's Favor, and then today I was starting to watch the one with it's called Nothing to Fear, and that's with Scarecrow. And I just remember, and just the intro when they show the Warner Brothers symbol. I mean, even when they first show the Warner Brothers symbol, it's already this show is dead serious, because then it's like, and then it's like the Warner Brothers symbol change, and it's got 2 lights like eyes, and it turns into one of those police blimps. And it just goes into the theme and everything. I just remember every day looking forward to that. And I remember I would watch the Animaniacs came on before it. Then it was like an hour. First half hour was like Animaniacs, and the second half hour was like Pinky and the Brain or different Tiny Toons characters. Katie Kaboom. I forgot some of the other ones, but there was
like a variety show.
Yeah, and boom, and then it was Batman. It was Batman. And I was just like, oh, it was just so exciting because it was like every day a brand new episode, and that was what kept my love for Batman and just the DC comic. And what's cool is that for me, the more I watch Batman, or read about, the more I want to know about Superman, and the more I like Superman. The more I watch Superman, the more I want to know about Batman. Like, there's just, every time I read or watch either one, I'm just like, I can't wait to see the other one. And then my dream was to see them both together. And then when the Batman animated, when they finally introduced Batman and Superman in that cartoon, and then they eventually made the Superman, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. They're buddies, you know?
Yeah, and it was actually kind of crazy that they came out with the Superman animated series like a couple of years after they started the Batman series, because they were like, all right, well, we have Batman, we need to have Superman in there too. I mean, we need these kids to know who Superman is.
Yeah.
And so they got the Superman series out there, and sometime, I think it was in the 2nd season of Superman, they introduced the World's Finest episode, where they got Batman and Superman together in the same thing. And the plot of it is pretty much the Joker finds a giant kryptonite dragon, and he brings it to Lex Luthor, wanting to sell him the idea that he'll beat Superman if Lex can beat Batman for him.
Yes, I remember this now.
And it was kind of a clever idea, because it actually forced Batman to go to Metropolis to follow the Joker to see what the heck he was trying to do.
Uh-huh.
And it gets both Superman and Batman to work together. And it's a 2-part episode, which they later released as a whole movie. Straight to DVD, of course. And it was very fun. If you haven't seen it, watch it. You'll love it. And ever since then, whenever anybody talks about, hey, you know what they should do? They should have a Batman-Superman movie. They always call it, they should have a World's Finest movie. Mm-hmm. Because of that episode. Because they are the world's finest superheroes.
Yes. We're going to touch on the other characters, the other superheroes in the Justice League, out of the main 6. And in the upcoming episodes, we'll dive into each one of them. But still, I don't think there are 2 other superheroes in all the comics, Marvel, DC, doesn't matter, that are more morally rich than Batman and Superman. There's none. I mean, even Wonder Woman, Flash, they're all good. They all won't kill. They're all awesome people, awesome heroes, awesome characters. But it's like they all get their strength morally from Superman and Batman. You know what I mean? Like, them two, even though they're so different, they're still alike in many ways, too. And I think they respect each other so much. And it's like, they just don't waver. Like, nothing is good. Like, they're completely incorruptible. And I love that line from Heath Ledger in Dark Knight. He's like, when he's hanging upside down, he's like, you are absolutely incorruptible, And it's just like, it's such a cool statement, but it's true about both of them. Like, I just don't, can you think of another comic book character that's as morally rich as those two? I don't think so.
I don't think there is another superhero that is as adamant about sticking to their morals. Yeah. Like, at some point, most of the other superheroes have this moment where they're like, they have to decide whether they're going to stick to it and whether they're not. And they have that moment that is so, like, rich for characters that shows their humanity. It shows how, like, they can feel like they can go bad at any moment.
And what's awesome, too, that I've noticed in the Justice League cartoon, too, is once they introduced that was, it seems like when either Batman or Superman is going to maybe cross that line, only the other one can bring the other one back. Do you notice that? Like, if Superman's about to go nuts because he's so angry or something, it's always Bruce that brings him back. And vice versa. If Batman's about to go nuts, Superman's the only one that can kind of convince him. Because there's no other character that they both respect as much. I mean, they respect Wonder Woman together. They respect Flash. But Flash is always like... I feel like Flash is almost kind of like the younger brother in the group thing. And Wonder Woman's like this strong woman, obviously. But even some of her ways, they don't agree with, But Batman and Superman, both of them, and I love it. And I was watching, I've been watching, I told you I've been watching the Young Justice episodes. And even in that incarnation of these characters, and even in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, I love how everybody calls Superman Superman. Everybody calls Batman Batman. But only Bruce Wayne, only Batman calls Superman Clark. I think that is amazing. I think it's just awesome. Like, I don't think I've ever heard him say Superman to him unless he's talking about him. When he talks about him, he refers to him as Superman. And same thing with Superman to Batman. But when he's talking to him, he says Clark.
And they're both actually on a first name basis. So
yeah, but that gets to Superman because even in Smallville and the other ones, he always is very adamant, I'm Clark. Not Kal-El, he always wants to be called Clark. And it's just, I think when Bruce calls him that, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta, I have humanity too. I gotta come back. I just think that's so cool that Batman, even though he's a human, it's like Superman won't even mess with him either. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they both have such respect for each other that I think that's why I fell in love with both of them. Because they're so awesome in their own way, and they're so different in their own way. So, but I did want to talk about a certain villain that's in the animated series that I was telling you the other night that it just that's what cemented to me how serious the animated series was the Scarecrow. For some reason, the Scarecrow always kind of freaked me out.
Which was his purpose.
Yes. Maybe because it was the whole fear thing. And I was admittedly afraid of the dark when I was a kid. It really freaked me out in the dark. And a lot of those episodes with the Scarecrow, they would like show just, it'd be dark, and then all you'd see is like his smile, and almost like he looked like a pumpkin head almost sometimes when they'd show him.
It was almost a Cheshire Cat deal from Alice in Wonderland, where you only see like his eyes and his smile.
Yeah, exactly. But what villain for you do you think they really got the best on the animated series? Or did the best, I guess?
Well, I hate to be the normal Batman fan and like go with the obvious choice.
I think I know where you're going with this.
But, you know, they really did a different take and a good take on the Joker. Mark Hamill, of course, did an amazing performance. Like, his Joker is like, every time I think about the Joker, I think about some way of hearing him talk, it's always in Mark Hamill's voice.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so many other Jokers, so many other people who have played the Joker, and every single time, it's always a different version, and it's always something else. But whenever I think about the Joker, Mark Hamill's voice is always the voice in my head for him.
Yeah.
And just the ridiculousness of that character on the show, like the different ideas that he had, the different plans that he had to try to beat Batman, and that a lot of the times it didn't actually make sense. It only made sense in Joker's head.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, like, I think it was in one episode of the Batman series that Robin is like, well, do you think that the Joker's going to do this? Like, and Batman just goes, the Joker's ideas are only good in his own head. or something along those lines. Like, it's only in his head that it makes sense. Like, his logic doesn't follow anyone else's logic, and the only person who can figure him out is Batman, and he's still tripped up every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, here's a perfect example. Like, yeah, to me, Mark Hamill, well, for a long time, Jack Nicholson was the Joker for me, because that's the only one I knew.
True.
And then the animated series came out, and I was like, okay, this is Joker. You know, this is Hamill Joker. And then Heath Ledger just blew it away. But it's almost like I look at that Joker as a totally, like a different Joker, you know? Like, they're just almost two different characters. But listening to Fat Man on Batman, hearing the interview with Mark Hamill, and watching the cartoons again, yeah, he is the Joker when it comes to animation. Or even if I were to read it in a comic, I would picture Mark Hamill's voice. So I was watching an episode of Young Justice the other day, and it was a crazy episode where the Injustice League was trying to take over or whatever, and the Justice League had to, like, fight back, but then the Young Justice team had to, like, also do their little covert mission. But one of the villains in the Injustice League was Joker, and it's not Mark Hamill. It's a different guy, and I'm just like, oh, it's so hard to watch. Because I'm just like, this is not the Joker. Like, he really, like, I feel bad for whoever's doing it. But it just sucked to me. I was just like, this is, ugh. Like, the way they drew him, and, you know, they're trying to update the look, I guess, and stuff. But in the things they were having him say, it just felt too forced. You know, I don't know. It's like he's trying too hard to be funny. Whereas the way Mark Hamill did it, and the writing of Paul Dini and Bruce Timm and stuff was just so good that it was like, it just flowed. It just was like, that's Joker. That's just the way it is. It didn't come off as cheesy or whatever. It can't be. It's just, that's just how nuts he is. But this new one is just like, I don't know. Like, he said one funny thing that actually made me laugh. But with the other one, when I was watching Joker's Favor, I was just like giggling. Not the whole time, but most of the time, you know, I was just like, he's nuts. Because it's like, in that, I was wondering, why is it called Joker's Favor? The fact that he meets a guy on the road that's having road rage and doesn't realize that it's the Joker in the car. He tries to flee from him. Joker follows him. Well, first of all, the fact that Joker was driving a station wagon and it looked like there was luggage and stuff, it looked like he stole it right from a family. And just seeing when they pan when they pan the camera to show who's driving the car, you just see the Joker sitting there driving the car like it's totally normal for him driving this station wagon. I'm like, that's just hilarious in itself. And he just looks at him and smiles. And then he follows him. And then he's like, you know, the guy pulls off into an off-road. And he's like, his car breaks down. And he's like, oh, I got away from him kind of thing. And then, boom, Joker's like behind a tree. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'll do anything. Please don't hurt me, please. And Joker's like, all right. I'm not going to do anything. But you know what? I'm going to give you I'm going to take your information on it. You're going to do me a favor. He's like, oh, anything, what? He's like, oh, no, not right now. But one day I'm just going to call you up and pretty much I'm totally destroying this episode right now because I can't do what Mark Hamill does. But basically he doesn't contact the guy until 2 years later. And the guy even changes his name and doesn't even matter. Joker found him. And he just thinks it's hilarious this whole time. That just tormenting this poor guy for 2 years. This guy's like wondering when the Joker is going to call him. You know, and he's probably thinking at that point, oh, he's not going to call me. And nope, he calls him. And it's just stuff like that. It's just genius, you know? Mm-hmm. And to see this new incarnation of him on the Young Justice, it's just like, just don't even put the Joker on there unless it's Mark Hamill, please. But yeah, yours is, the Joker. I mean, I would agree with you. I definitely think that was, you know, obviously the reoccurring villain, and he was definitely the alpha villain, as we could see. Show. The Joker, I mean, the Scarecrow just always kind of just freaked me out, just looking at him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, a lot of the other villains that they had on there were really good. Like, I like what they did with Two-Face, how they made him Harvey Dent, and Harvey Dent was like Bruce's best friend forever. And that storyline that they did, like his gradual like descent into madness, was just a fantastic like showmanship of how they can like tell a story that is that deep and that dark, and yet still have it okay for kids to watch later.
You just made me think of something. I think part of why the show is so good is that a lot of it, because going back now trying to watch some of those episodes, a lot of them are part one, part two, part one, part two. Like, they didn't care about, like, making a lot of the episodes to be continued. You know, they're like, this story is so important, we're going to make it go on past one episode. You know, that's very smart because that makes it so much deeper, you know? Yeah. Whereas if you just do, you know, one episode of Two-Face and that's it. And it's like, what? No, there's so much more to the character. And I'm going to have to go back and watch that one because I remember it vaguely.
Yeah, the Two-Face episode was crazy. One character that they decided to bring back and give him a good background is an episode that you watched recently because you told me it was Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze. Heart of Ice.
Heart of Ice episode where they go into his backstory, and his backstory is kind of crazy. I really liked his story because it makes you feel for the villain, even though you know he's a bad guy, he's doing bad things, he wants to kill someone, and you're like, no, it's okay, he's not really a bad guy, he's just been through a lot of crap.
Yeah. It's like you said, you feel for the character, but at the same time, you know Batman's going to have to stop him.
Right.
But the thing is like, you know, just because you have this pain and stuff doesn't mean you go and make more people feel pain. That's the difference between the villain and a hero is like, you know, we all have pain, but it's what you do with that pain.
Right.
You can either turn it into something great or just become somebody else's pain, you know, and that's where Batman comes in, is he took his pain, because he could easily have turned, I mean, if you think about Batman's story, seeing his parents murdered, that's like the perfect recipe for him turning into a villain.
Yeah, and that's why his character is so good, that it's like, he could have turned into a villain, but he decided to turn his life to stopping people like that.
Exactly.
And we all go through the same, like, we don't all have our parents gunned down in front of us when we're children, but we all go through some sort of situation where we have to decide where we're going to go. Are we going to be a hero, or are we going to just fall in with the other villains?
Exactly. That's an awesome way to put it. Yeah, because, I mean, you don't have to be, a hero nowadays. You don't have to necessarily save a whole city to be a hero, but you can be somebody's hero. Whether that's just listening to them talk, just asking them, what's on, what's going on? I can tell something's going on with you. Let's talk about it. And that might save somebody from doing something horrible that thinks nobody else cares,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was really cool to show. I think it's important in any superhero story or any movie to show the backstory of a villain, because the question I always think when I see bad guys in movies, were they always bad? Or did something? That's what the genius was, and we'll get more into the next episode about. And I can't wait to talk about Lex on Smallville, but I think that was what they did with him on that show. I think is what they try to do with Anakin on Star Wars. Is like, look, these are two characters that everybody knows them as being horrible people, but how did they become that? Were they always that bad? No, there had to have been something that happened to make them finally turn that corner into darkness. And it's like, and I think that's what's really cool about the Batman animated series is that was the first time in just video, as far as TV or movies or anything, where they show you like, okay, this is what made this person go on the wrong path. And that's really interesting. And I still don't know. And I know there are different incarnations that I need to read and go look about. I still don't know the actual backstory of the Joker, and I would love to know that.
The crazy thing about the Joker is that he has so many backstories, which is what they incorporated into The Dark Knight, that he has a whole bunch of backstories that he doesn't really have a set origin, which is kind of what adds to his whole chaos.
Exactly. That like for him, it helps that you don't know his backstory. Just that he comes out of nowhere and is just nuts.
Like in, I believe in the animated series, they touched upon it once, and they did do it in the Batman movie, the first one with Tim Burton made.
Yeah, they showed a little bit of his backstory. They
showed his backstory, that he was a criminal, he was a petty criminal. One time, Batman came in and knocked him into this vat of acid, or I don't even know what kind of chemicals it was. It was just some random assortment of chemicals. He dumped into it. When he came out, he was the Joker, and he just went mad, and that was him.
Yeah.
So that's just one backstory for him, but he has so many different ones that he says that this is his backstory. I don't even think he knows. So he's created his own backstory for himself that he changes whenever he wants.
I want to shoot myself in the foot right now because I can't remember, but I remember I was listening to Fat Man on Batman, and they were talking about there's a I think it's a graphic novel on the Joker.
The Killing Joke?
Maybe. I don't know. But it's supposed to give way. It's supposed to be an in-depth story about the Joker. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the name of it now, but when we look it up, we'll tell it to you guys so that you know. But that's something I would like to read because I'm just fascinated by that character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we gotta cut this a little, not short because it's not short. We've been on for a while now, but we kind of need to conclude our second episode. But there was one thing that I wanted to talk about, which was the what did you think of? We got to just talk about this really quickly. What did you think about the ending to The Dark Knight Rises? Because you saw Inception, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, the little spinning top. Like, did it actually fall? Did it not? Was he still dreaming? Did he get out of the dream? Like, he did that on purpose so the audience can make their own decision, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are saying that that's what it is about The Dark Knight Rises. It's kind of like an homage to that movie. because I guess some people could say, well, that was just Alfred, dreaming that he saw Bruce Wayne and Catwoman. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, good Lord, please see it. At the coffee shop or whatever in Europe, wherever they were. But I personally think it really was. He really did see him. I think especially with the whole part with the autopilot. They thought he said that the autopilot didn't work, but then those engineers tell Lucius Fox that somebody fixed it and it was Bruce Wayne. It's like, okay, he definitely was planning to like pretend he died or whatever.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that ending? Did you like the way it ended?
I thought that for the trilogy, it was a good ending. Like, for his set of movies, it had to end with him not having to be Batman anymore.
Exactly.
Because they were kind of like pushing that whole thing throughout the Dark Knight and throughout the Dark Knight Rises, how Alfred was like saying, you can't do this forever. You were never meant to do this forever. And he's like, I know, but I have to find a way. But I felt like he was like thinking to himself, I have to find a way of getting myself out of this so that nobody will think that I will be able to come back.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, people that have been trashing the movie are like, well, Batman is supposed to fight forever. He would never just quit like that or whatever. But the thing is, since Batman Begins, he's been saying, as a man, I can't do this. As a man, I can't do this. But as a legend, as a symbol, I can be immortal. I can be everlasting. And then they kept, that whole theme of, well, I'm not going to be Batman forever. And especially in The Dark Knight, he was already looking to stop being Batman. He was hoping that Harvey Dent would make the city so safe that he wouldn't need to be Batman anymore.
And actually, I just noticed something. They made Batman go the same route as Ra's al Ghul. Because you know how in Batman Begins they had Ra's al Ghul. It was like, yeah, so this guy wasn't really the Ra's al Ghul. I am, and it just gets passed down from one to the next to the next. And he did the same thing at the end of Dark Knight Rises by passing it on to the Blake kid.
Oh, yeah, because Ra's al Ghul, the character, is supposed to be immortal, right?
He's supposed to be immortal. He's supposed to... There's no way to, like, make sure that it's really him.
So obviously he's probably... What would make sense in a real world is that it's just like a character, a symbol, and he's just passing it down.
Yeah.
And so like Batman passing it down to John Blake or whatever to be the next Batman. I mean, I like what you said. Like that for Nolan's movies, for this trilogy, it was for me it was the perfect way to end it. I mean, there's so many things you can find wrong in the movie, I guess. I mean, there's so many things you can find wrong in any movie if
you're looking for the wrong things.
Yeah, trying to pull because nobody's perfect, but I mean, Dark Knight to me was close, very close to perfect. I mean, that was like a 98%, on a test. But to me, Batman Begins was probably like a 90%. The Dark Knight 98, and then Dark Knight Rises 95. Yeah. I don't know if that helps people understand more what I'm thinking of it, but that's how I look at it. I think it just. To me, I love The Dark Knight Rises. I did think after I first saw it, I thought, well, you know what? If you're a real Batman fan, like you want to see Batman fighting a lot in the movie, you're not going to really like this movie because it's so real world that he doesn't even like get back in the suit till like 40 minutes into the movie, and you're just like, holy crap! But it's because Nolan just loves story and is trying to take you through all these things. And then he doesn't like just doing something for the sake of doing it. Well, I'm going to show Batman fight somebody because we need to show a fight right here. No, he's going to make him fight something because it works with the plot. Like, he has to do this because of that. Like, the whole that amazing ship that he has in this movie, you don't just see it to see it. He has to use it because all these Bane douchebags stole the tumblers, So, like, he has to have something that's even bigger and better.
Yeah.
You know, because the villains have taken everything, you know, so it always has that reasoning behind it, that he does everything for a reason. And I just think this movie was, if you like war movies, it's a war movie almost. If you like epic disaster movies, it's that. If you like storytelling, art, almost like art or acting movies, it's there. You like just action popcorn movie, it's there. And if you just like comics, it's there. Like, I mean, yeah, you don't get to see him be Batman as much, but I think it just fit the other two so well that, you know, and I heard Christopher Nolan say he wants people to look at it. The trilogy is not necessarily 3 separate movies, but just a beginning, middle, and end to one big movie.
Yeah.
And if you look at it like that, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just one big crazy thing. And just really quick, jumping in, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini decided to do a little to help out David S. Goyer and Chris Nolan between Batman Begins and Dark Knight. They created a short, an hour-long animated film called Batman Gotham Knight.
I think I saw that.
It's just a series of shorts that are about. There's like different things. Like there's one with kids telling their separate stories about Batman and fighting some criminal, and then there's one that's a backstory, one where he fights Killer Croc, and so there's a few of them, and it's quite interesting. It's kind of an in-between movie to get you from Batman Begins to Dark Knight and show what he did between them. And it has pretty much all of the cast from the animated series. I mean, Kevin Conroy plays Batman again.
Yes, which is awesome.
And so it's an awesome group of movies.
Yeah, the Gotham Knight, I remember watching that. I can't remember how I watched it. I think it came with Batman Begins, the DVD or something. No, where did it?
It was its own separate thing. It was like all those other animated movies. It came out all on its own, but they probably released it around the same time as. Nope. They released it between the two. So it's like they released it a few months before Dark Knight came out.
Okay. I must have downloaded it online. Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. I want to see when this thing came out. It was Batman Gotham Knight, right?
Yes.
But Knight, K-N-I,
yeah.
Like Knight? Okay.
That one.
Yeah, 2008. So, yeah, because Dark Knight came out 2008 as well. Yeah. This came out July 8th, 2008. So, yeah, I must have downloaded it online or somewhere because I know I watched it. Because I remember knowing that it was going to be like kind of like an in-between of what happened in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but we would have been living together, so I don't remember watching it in Orlando, but whatever. But yeah, that was a pretty cool one. But I don't think they could really do that going from Dark Knight to Dark Knight Rises because he was not doing anything.
Yeah, he was just chilling out in his house with no cartilage in his left knee. And...
Yes. Yeah, the thing is with Dark Knight Rises, it they did push it more. The third one. I mean, the third one they raised the stakes on everything. I mean, Dark Knight, I really thought, how is he going to win? This is insane. Joker is just going nuts. Dark Knight Rises, I was literally like in despair watching it. I was just like, oh my gosh, like that goes wrong, and it's not like in Dark Knight where it goes wrong, but it's like isolated incidents or whatever. Like this was like massive scale. Like Bane does this, and then like destroying the city, and then releasing the prisoners, and then doing this, and then breaking Batman's back. Spoiler. Then. Throwing him in a prison, I mean, just like, holy crap, like, how is he going to... And then, even when you think he's beaten Bane, boom, he gets stabbed by freaking Talia. And you're just like, are you freaking kidding me? Can he get a break? You know?
It was almost like an episode of 24.
Yeah. It's just like, let's just kick the crap out of Batman more than anything in this movie, and then, but saying that though, it was an awesome movie. I watched it twice in the theater, and I think another reason why, and I thought this movie was going to do at least as well as Dark Knight, but with the shooting and everything, I think that it's hard to judge it because that just put a huge damper on this movie, unfortunately. For the victims and unfortunately for the movie makers, because I'm sure that just makes them feel like crap, Also, it's like, wow, we made this movie and the last movie inspired some nut to do this, Mm-hmm. Well, not really inspired him, but he was a nut on his own, but still, he justified it as that. But I think it's still an awesome movie. I would watch it again right now, It's definitely just it was a really good movie. I just think the three. It's going to be really hard to see another trilogy, especially a comic book come to life trilogy that beats this three. And that will lead us. We're closing up right now, but that leads us into the next episode, which our next episode is going to be mostly focused on the last son of Krypton, the Man of Steel. The Man of Tomorrow, Superman. And the reason why I'm saying that is because like I just said, this is this Nolan Batman trilogy is probably going to be the best superhero trilogy of all time. But what I'm hoping is that if any other hero can at the least match it, you would think it could be his buddy Superman. And with Nolan being involved in it, and everything we know about it so far, I'm hoping that it will be, just as good, and it'll bring seriousness and authenticity to Superman. And but I just want to say I love Batman. Batman has been a huge inspiration in my life, and I still, apparently they're gonna be, and we didn't really get into this, but they're obviously Warner Brothers. They're already looking to do another reboot of it.
I think we touched on it on the last podcast.
Yeah, so check that out.
Yeah.
But like, Nolan's movies just barely calming down in the press, and they're already talking about rebooting Batman again with this. But I really don't know how. I really am interested to see how they're going to do it, because to me now, like, what's going to beat these three movies? Seriously. But we'll be excited. I'm sure me and you will be in the theater watching it when it comes out. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's playing it, whatever the way they do it,
You got that right.
Oh, I do want one more thing, Al. We're coming to a close, I promise. But I did just read that apparently there's a rumor that the next Batman movie the plot might be based on or closely related to Arkham Asylum. The game that just came out recently.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, really interesting if they go that way. Because there's a story where, and I can't remember what comic book or what story it is, but I just heard about it, that where the plot is Batman being in Arkham Asylum. Like getting thrown in there somehow, and then he has to face all the villains from within. I'm like, what?
There was actually an animated series episode of that where I think it's called The Trial, where all of the villains capture Batman, bring him to Arkham Asylum, and then they put him on trial. And they use a lawyer to be his defender. His lawyer is a very outspoken anti-Batman advocate, and they get her to defend Batman. And of course, Harvey Dent, Two-Face, plays the prosecutor, and the Joker is the judge.
Oh my God.
And they have a whole bunch of Batman's villains playing the jury. And so it's just this big whole trial scene, and this lawyer has to try against all of these villains who are desperately trying to get Batman to blame Batman for them being who they are.
Wow. That's probably where Seinfeld got their idea of their last episode. But yeah, but what's so funny about that is if they really hate him so much, you would think if they got him in there, they'd just kill him.
Right?
I mean, if you have him sitting there and there's all of you and just him, why would you just kill him? But that's the cartoon comic world. I mean, obviously, it's more fun and interesting to watch them try him. It's just kind of crazy. But yeah, so I don't know. So we'll see what the next Batman movie series is, and I'm sure they'll hopefully do him justice. Mm-hmm. No pun intended. Do him justice. But yeah. So next episode, it's going to be about the Man of Steel, and then we still have to decide who we're going to do after that. I already have an idea of who I want, but I'll talk it over with my partner here. We'll see if we do that.
Yeah, we'll be discussing things between episodes of how we're going to carry on. All right, well, this has been AD and RD on DC, and we are cutting out. Goodbye, Roberto.
Till next time.
Till next time. Bye.